Yay! Isn't it pretty? Lost some balls on the way. This isn't really how it looks, but it just dropped its balls all over the floor when I was dragging it in. And it's been through some tough times. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So, by the way, just thought I would quickly mention as I'm looking at it that, see, I can still wear my weave, girl. Yes, you can see my natural hair a little bit, but we don't have to worry about that. So today is going to be another story time video. This is like my last one that I have that I wanted to share with you guys. And I was kind of like apprehensive about doing this video because it is a little bit embarrassing more on my side than anything else. But I was like, you know what, like nothing is a secret here anymore. I'm just sharing like my whole life with you guys. So why not just say it, because it is kind of funny now that I look back on it. Gotta get rid of my gum first. As I mentioned before, back when I was in beauty college last year, I used to be on a dating site for like a small period of time. Okay, it wasn't such a small period of time, it was like 6 months, but it was a 6-month period of time. And while I was on that dating site, one day when I was bored, I just decided to go on and see the like top 100 people, because on this particular dating site you could go on and there was like top people. I don't know how they kind of like categorized it into who was like the top people on the dating site. I guess it was just if people would kind of like go on and click on your profile a lot, or if you're really good at like messaging back or something like that. But anyways, I was looking through the top 100 guys and I've seen this guy, let's just call him Goliath. That wasn't his name, but let's just call him Goliath because I really like that name. Not really, but I just really want to use it because it's hilarious. So I found this guy named Goliath, and he was a few years older than me. He wasn't exactly my age. And he was really, really hot. And when I say he was really hot, that is like an understatement. Like if I could show you guys a picture, I would, but that would be embarrassing. Like I didn't even like Ryan Gosling, but it was like Ryan Gosling on a dating site. Like you just wouldn't expect to see someone like that on a dating site. I was like, fucking win. So anyways, on the dating site that I was on, you could send people like kisses, which I've mentioned before, I think, in my catfish story. You could send people like kisses and then say like, I want to talk to you, whatever, and then if they wanted to talk to you, they would possibly send you an email, which would cost money. So I messaged this guy and I was like, hey, I'd love to talk to you, whatever, and he sent me back an email, and I was like, oh wow, like I didn't expect that. And to be honest with you, like this guy was like tall, he was muscly, he had blonde hair, and he was of Greek background, and he wouldn't have had any like problems with finding a girl in the Sydney area. Like there's like tons of attractive girls in Sydney, I'm sure, and he wouldn't have had a problem with it. He had a really good job, he was really good looking, so he was a real person. Like this isn't a catfish story, he actually was a real person, but it was just like kind of weird that he would talk to me because... Was that a train? It was kind of weird that he would talk to me because not that I'm like lacking confidence or anything or low self-esteem, but like just me and my age and the fact that I was like in school still technically is just like, you know, like surely you could find like a friggin' model looking girl in Sydney that like is a model and she has like a banging body, and you know, like why would you pick me out of all people to talk to on an email? But anyways, I wasn't complaining. So he sent me an email and we got talking and all that sort of stuff, and he kind of like asked me where I was from, and at the point I lived about 4 hours from Sydney and that's where I lived, and he was sort of like, oh, you know, that's a shame, I didn't realise you were that far away, I'm not really looking for a distance thing, but here's my number, if you're ever in Sydney we should like catch up for coffee and whatever. And I didn't really think anything of it, I didn't like take his number or anything like that because I was like, well, I'm never in Sydney, so like why would I bother? So anyways, that was the end of it. I was like, oh, what a shame, you know. Months passed, and when I was nearing to finish beauty college, I basically had decided in my mind that I wanted to move to Sydney. Not that I could have just moved to Sydney most likely, but I decided that I wanted to move to Sydney, and I was like, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. And then while I was kind of thinking about it, I was like, oh my god, I'm moving to Sydney. Me and that guy can totally like get together. Whilst I was sitting there planning it, I basically got on my dating site, which I think I deleted at this point, but I got back on it again, got his number, and then I sent him a text message and I was like, hey Goliath, I was like, hey Goliath, you know, how are you, or whatever. And I don't think he really like remembered who I was because we hadn't talked in like months. But I was like, how are you, you know, whatever. And then I said to him that I was thinking about coming down to Sydney, and you know, that I didn't really know anybody, so I thought that I would just talk to him. And he seemed to, you know, fine about it. He was like, oh, that's really cool and whatever. He wasn't very talkative, like it's like he like really didn't want to talk to me very much because it's not like I was there already. But he was kind of like, oh, you know, like when you move down here, you know, we should totally like catch up or whatever. And I was like, yeah, like thinking to myself like, oh shit, I'm probably not even going to move down there. What have I got myself into? A couple of weeks had passed, I think, and you know, sometimes when you're just blinded by somebody's physical appearance and you just like have that major crush on somebody, and the worst part is I hadn't even met this guy yet, like I had not even met him, but I just had like a major crush on him, and I was like, I just have to meet this guy, like I have to do it. But basically what I did was I decided to, we were doing work experience at the time, like we were going to work experience somewhere else, and I ended up going to Newcastle for work experience, but originally I wanted to go to Sydney because that's where I thought I was going to move, and I wanted to get like an idea of what it was like to work there. Thank God I didn't. So I basically ended up messaging him, and I was like, oh hey, I'm coming down for work experience in Sydney. This is before I'd even planned any of this. We should catch up. And he was like, yeah, definitely. He added me on Facebook because I guess it was sort of like closer to us actually meeting. Added me on Facebook and whatever. And then that was pretty much it. We didn't really talk, whatever. I would kind of message him occasionally saying like, oh hey, how have you been, whatever. He wasn't really talking, and at the time I was kind of like, why are you not really like talking to me very much? And he was like, oh, you know, we can talk like when we catch up for coffee and stuff like that. I guess he wasn't the type of person that liked talking or like over the phone, like texting or whatever, or he was like just really busy with his Sydney life. And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm going to be coming down to Sydney on this date. This was like a couple weeks before I was even going to work experience. I'm going to be coming down. He was like, okay, cool, just send me a message when it happens. So anyways, I was kind of sitting there and I was like, okay, you know, like if I'm going down there for work experience for Sydney, we'll like just meet up for coffee and whatever. Like he's totally gonna fall in love with me when he meets me. Like it's just a matter of time. Like I have to meet him. He's just so attractive. Didn't know barely anything about him. I was just so blinded by his looks. Like he was that good looking to me. Work experience came around and I had decided not to go to Sydney and I was going to go to Newcastle, but I was like, oh my god, what am I going to do if I'm not going down to Sydney? How am I going to meet this guy? And I was just so apt in meeting him, like you have no idea. I just had like the biggest crush on him. I thought he was gorgeous and I was like, I have to meet him. So I decided to make up a huge lie and I was like, oh hey, I'm coming down to Sydney on this day, do you want to meet up? On this week, sorry, like I'm coming down to Sydney for the week to do some work down there. And I was trying to say to him like, oh, do you want to meet up on like a Saturday or whatever, because I always had Saturdays free, and I was like, you know, maybe I can just drive down to Sydney, a 4-hour trip, meet up with this guy, like, you know, hang out with him for the day and whatever. But he kept kind of like changing the subject whenever I would say like, do you want to meet up on a Saturday or something. I guess he was just like busy on the weekend and didn't really care about whether he was going to see me or not. Like, of course you guys are probably like, wow, you haven't even met you before, but I guess he was kind of like, you know, I'm not gonna like get with this girl, she doesn't even live here, like, you know, who cares, whatever. So he basically was saying to me like, oh, how about we just meet up for coffee in your lunch break? We can meet at this like train station that's right, it's not train station, like this cafe right in Sydney near the railway station or something in Sydney, and we can just like have coffee and whatever in our lunch breaks. And of course that wasn't going to work for me because I wasn't having a lunch break. I wasn't even in Sydney for work experience. I was literally going to drive down to Sydney just to meet this guy. Like, I would never do that now, but at the time I must have just been so fucking desperate. I was like, oh, you know, like I don't really know if I'm gonna have time, like I'm gonna be working all day and whatever. And then I was like, I made up some lie that I was staying in Newcastle for a while and that I could drive back to Sydney one night or one afternoon or something and see him, because I was kind of thinking then if he thought I was going to drive from Newcastle to Sydney, then maybe he'd say, oh well, you know, maybe we can just hang out on the weekend. He didn't though. He was basically just like, okay, you know, because I picked a day. I was like, okay, Thursday I'm going to drive down to Sydney and I'm going to see this guy. That's what I said. So anyways, that was my plan. One Thursday I was going to drive down to Sydney and see him, but he had work Monday to Friday and he wasn't like suggesting that we hung out on the weekend. So I was pretty much like, oh, well, you know, he was like, oh, well, maybe we could catch up after I finish work on Thursday. Because I didn't want to drive down to Sydney to meet up with a guy for like coffee at night and then drive home 4 hours. Like, there's no way I was doing that. I was like, oh, you know, I don't really know if I'm going to be able to have the time, and I don't have any accommodation in Sydney. I'm not staying in Sydney, I'm staying in Newcastle, so it's going to be kind of like a long drive. So he was like, oh, well, I guess that you can like stay over at my place in Sydney. And he was like joking, like, oh, as long as you're not a serial killer and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, like, hi, how funny. So that is literally what I was going to do. I packed my bags on a Thursday afternoon at like 3:30 because he didn't finish work until like 6:30, and I drove to Sydney. Bags packed, going to meet up with this guy who was, I believe he was 30 at the time and I was like 20. Okay. You guys are like gonna judge. But I drove down to Sydney and I was like, oh my god, once this guy meets me, he's just gonna love me, he's just gonna think I'm so funny, and it's just gonna be great. Complete and utter bullshit. Like, as I said, like, he probably could have had like 150,000 girls if he wanted. He was that attractive. And I know you guys are probably thinking, oh my god, this was another catfish story, this guy wasn't real, but it really was real. Like, he had a whole Facebook page, he was talking to people, he had photos, and then like also, I know he was real because I ended up talking to him on the phone later that night, which I'll tell you guys in a minute. So I drove down to Sydney. I didn't tell anybody. I told my mum that I was planning on going down there, but I didn't tell. She was like, no, like, you can't do that, like, that's really dangerous. I was like, nah, it's fine, like, I know, you know, I know him, we've been talking, whatever. The scary part is that I hadn't really talked to him. Like, I knew what his job was, I knew where he lived because he'd given me his address, but that's pretty much all. Like, we hadn't really talked very much other than that. So got in my car, had never ever driven to Sydney before in my entire life, had a GPS in my car, and I was like driving there. So anyways, by the time I got into Sydney, it was really dark, and as I said, I'm like from a country town, so I had never ever driven in Sydney before. I'd been to Sydney, but I'd never driven in Sydney, especially at night time. So I got into Sydney, and then my mum called me, and I answered the phone, and we were talking. I was like, it's fine, like, I'm just going down here, like, you know, this guy is completely normal, like, I've talked to him, like, he has a Facebook page, he has all of this, like, I know that he's real, things wouldn't add up if he wasn't real, it's fine, you know, like, he doesn't seem like a weirdo, he hasn't said anything, and I knew that he wasn't a weirdo because he wasn't trying to get me down there. He was just like, okay, yeah, that's fine, whatever. He didn't really care. My mum was like talking to me, and then she was saying to me like, can you tell me his address so that I can tell the police if anything happens to you, if you go missing, you know, what if you get there and there's like 10 guys there that are all going to, like, you know, and there's like 10 guys waiting. Not in a porn way, in like a bad way. When she said that, I was like, oh my god, like, what am I doing? Like, I had just made it into Sydney, into Turramurra, I think it is. 7:30 at night it was, and I was like, oh my god, what am I doing? Like, all of a sudden it just hit me, like, I've just driven to Sydney, 4-hour trip to meet a guy that I have never met before, that I have barely talked to before, that I've met on a dating site, who is much older than me, who lives in like a Sydney suburb. What am I doing with my life? I pulled over at the side of the road and I decided to call this guy, and if he answered the phone, I was like, okay, I'll probably just end up going. So I called him, he didn't answer. I was texting him like, hey, you know, I'm in Sydney, I think I'm a little bit lost, what are you doing? And he told me that he was like at work and whatever. And then he messaged me and he was like, hey, I'm just in a meeting, I won't be a minute. So I waited for a little while. I pulled over onto some side road in Turramurra. The traffic was like crazy because I guess it was like people coming home from work. So I waited there, and then I was like, oh my god, like, I have to leave. Like, I can't believe that I've done this. This is so dangerous. Like, what have I done? So I drove to like a petrol station, got gas because I had to like drive all the way home, and I was like already taken up like half a tank of fuel, and then I just drove and I followed my GPS out onto the highway. And when I got out onto the highway, I just started boiling my eyes out because I was like, I can't believe what I've done. Like, just because this guy is like attractive and just because I thought he was hot, I drove all of this way for a guy who like probably wouldn't have even cared. Then this guy texted me and he was like, hey, I'm just out of my meeting, I'm traveling home, I'll be there probably in about 20 minutes, because he lived like in a suburb that was about 20 minutes from inner city. At this point I was like, nah, I'm definitely not going back, you know, whatever. And then I messaged him and I was like, hey, you know, I'm really sorry, but I've decided I'm gonna go home. And then he called me and I wasn't going to answer it, but I was like, he probably deserves me to like give him an explanation. So talked to him on the phone, you know, he was like a regular person, whatever. He was like, oh, have you really like turned around? You've come all this way. He didn't know that I'd come like 4 hours. He thought I'd just driven from Newcastle and I was like in Sydney already working. So I was like, sorry to like stuff you around and stuff, but I just don't think it's like really safe or right. And I think that he thought that I was just scared of the dark. I think that he thought that I was just like scared of, you know, Sydney and being dark and whatever, and you know, he thought I was like a little kid. But I was like, no, it's not that. I just really don't think that like meeting up with you in the middle of the night is like, not the middle of the night, but meeting up with you at night when I've never met you before is really safe. Like, I'm really sorry. Basically, he was like, okay, take care, whatever. Drove home, so I'd literally driven like 8 hours in a row. I got home at like 11 o'clock. I was so tired and I was like crying the whole way home. Mum kept calling me like, hey, are you nearly home? Like, where are you now? Whatever. Do you want to pull over and like have a little bit of a rest? I did not want to do that at all. And I was just like, I was just like shaking almost, because I was like, I can't believe that I've just driven to Sydney 4 hours away to meet up with a guy at his house at like 7:30 at night when I practically don't know anything about this guy, and I've driven all of this way for a guy. Like, I would never do that now. If I ever met up with a guy on a dating site or anything ever again, I would make sure that that guy like made the effort to like meet me halfway kind of thing. If we lived far away, I would never do that. It's just weird. And he wasn't even like into me, you know what I mean? Like, he wasn't even into the whole situation. He was just like, you know, basically I guess he was just trying to be nice, because he wasn't interested in dating anyone that was like long distance or whatever. So, to be honest with you, another reason I really wanted to film this video was basically to just share awareness. Like, please don't go meeting up with guys at night time or at their houses or whatever. Like, if you are going to meet up with someone you've never met before, meet them at a cafe or whatever. And you know what? Don't lie. I mean, a guy should like you because of where you live, what you do, what you look like. You shouldn't have to lie about your life in order to try and get a guy to like you just to seem more appealing. It's just not a good start at all, and it would have never worked out in my favour. We never would have ended up getting together. He, as I said, he was way too much like old for me. He had like a way better job than I did. Not that that makes any difference, but like, he could have had like so many girls in Sydney, and I think to this day he's still single, and I really don't. I think there must be something wrong with him, or he has some sort of pickiness, or he doesn't want a relationship, because he could just have a girl like with the click of a finger. But anyway, if I'm ever in Sydney, I'll probably like hook up with him. Just kidding. I wouldn't do that. No. So, yeah, that was the story. I know it probably wasn't as entertaining and funny, because it's kind of like embarrassing for me to talk about the fact that I did that, but I would never do it again. It was a one-off thing. It was just awkward, and I just wanted to like share awareness. Don't go like meeting up with random guys in Sydney or anywhere at night when you don't even know anything. And if they're not interested in really like talking to you or your life, like, he was always like, oh, well, you know, we'll talk when we meet up, like when we have coffee or whatever. And I was like, why not just talk over text, or like, why not call me if you know that we're meeting up? But it was just a friendly thing for him. He was just meeting up with me because of the fact that I was there. He didn't care about getting to know me. I need to go now because I'm sweating balls here. But I hope you guys liked it. Please give it a thumbs up if you did. Please give it a thumbs up, because I may not be here to this day if I had have gone. I couldn't be sitting here with my white Christmas tree telling this story, motherfuckers. And I will talk to you all very, very soon. Bye!